All right, Stephanie, so I want to thank you for coming in today. I know it takes a lot of strength to be here, so I really appreciate you making the time to come. Is there anything I can do to make you feel more comfortable right now? Do you want a glass of water, maybe a more comfortable chair?
No, thank you.
No? Okay, great. Are you familiar with the idea of confidentiality?
Somewhat.
Okay, so basically anything you say to me right now is going to be kept between the two of us. Unless you say something about harming yourself or harming someone else, otherwise you don't need to worry about me going on speaking about anything you've said. Also, if it's okay with you, I'm going to take some notes and also complete a couple assessments just to make sure we get the accurate treatment plan for you. If you'd like, you can see the notes at any time. All right, so whose idea was it for you to come see me today?
My CVS worker.
Okay. And what makes him think you should be here?
I just feel like I'm struggling a lot at home and stuff like that, and I just feel like I could use some help.
Okay, so you're looking for some guidance.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you agree with the reasons for you being here?
Yes.
Okay. And what would happen in our counseling sessions for them to feel worthwhile to you?
Maybe if I just got pointed in some direction where I could use some help, or just set up a routine or something.
Okay, we
Just
can
any
definitely
help at all.
definitely do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to applaud you for recognizing that you need to make some changes. I know from the information I got from you from the hospital that you did cut back on your drug use with your second child, so I think that's a really great step that you made already. All right, so what kind of habits have you been engaging in that have been problematic?
Mostly just drinking, avoiding going to work sometimes because of the drinking.
Okay.
I have cut back on the drug use, but it is still a problem.
Okay. Have you ever felt like you should cut down on the drinking?
Yeah, I do feel like I should cut back, but it's just some of the feelings that I have, it's hard to cut back on it.
Okay. And has anyone ever annoyed you by criticizing you for your drug or alcohol use?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, well, I'm sorry that's happening. Do you ever feel bad or guilty about it?
Yeah, especially with having two boys, it's really hard to have that problem.
Okay.
But sometimes when you're just feeling so bad, that feels like the only way out.
Okay, so you're making some decisions that you kind of recognize are bad, but you know that the children kind of need you, so you want to make those changes.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really great.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever used drugs or drinking first thing in the morning to kind of get rid of a hangover or nerves or anything like that?
Sometimes, not all the time, but it has happened before.
Okay. So I want to go into a bit more detail about your drug and alcohol use, if that's okay. Basically, we're just going to go one by one through a couple different substances. I'm going to kind of ask you some questions about your use. If at any point in time you don't feel comfortable answering, you can just say, I don't want to answer that. So we'll talk about alcohol first. What age were you when you first started using?
17.
17, okay. And when was the last time you had a drink?
Last week.
Okay. How often would you say that you're drinking?
Well, sometimes it's every day.
Okay.
Other weeks it might just be every couple days. It really depends on what kind of week I'm having.
Okay, that makes sense. Could you take a guess for me in the last 90 days how many days you've either had a drink or used a substance?
70 days.
Okay. And on average, what do you think your consumption would be per week?
What do you mean?
Like, would you say out of 7 days you're drinking 3? Maybe are you drinking 4 days a week? Are you drinking every day?
I would say 5 of 7.
5 of 7, okay. And do you find it happens more like on the weekends when you're alone, when you're with your friends?
I would say it's more so when I'm having a bad day, which is lately every day.
Okay. We're gonna work on that for you. Do you use any barbiturates or other sleeping pills?
No.
Okay. What about any benzodiazepines? No? Okay. And cannabis?
Yes.
What age were you when you first started using cannabis?
Around 17 as well.
Okay. And when was the date of last use?
Last week as well.
Last week, okay. How often would you say you're smoking?
Not not as much as the alcohol.
Okay.
I would say twice a week.
Twice a week? Okay. And in the last 90 days, how many days do you think you've used cannabis?
30.
Okay. And on average, how many days a week?
Twice a week.
You're doing really great so far. I want to thank you for all the honesty with this. What about any amphetamines or other stimulants? No? Okay. What about any analgesics or things like cough syrup? No? How about cocaine? Yeah? Okay. How old were you when you first started using cocaine?
Same age as the rest.
Okay, so I think we have a bit of a pattern here. 17 was kind of when these things started for you. When did you use cocaine last?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks. And how often are you using?
Once a week.
Once a week. In the last 90 days, how many days do you think you've used cocaine?
20 times.
Okay. And how many times a week do you think that this is happening?
It differs, but I would say maybe once or twice a week.
Okay. Are there any patterns that you notice with that? Like, are you doing it only on the weekends, only with other people, by yourself?
Well, before it was when I was with Jeff. Now it's just kind of when I kind of really feel like I need it. When I'm kind of down, I guess.
Okay. Do you ever use nicotine? Are you ever smoking cigarettes?
No.
No? Okay. And lastly, caffeine. Are you a coffee drinker?
Not really.
Not really?
I don't need it.
Okay, that's great. Alright, so that was really good. Next, I want to ask you a couple more questions about your drinking. It seems like that's something that you've identified as a problem, and so has your CAS worker. So I think it would be beneficial if we dive into that a little further. So how often do you have a drink containing alcohol? The answers would be never, monthly or less, 2 to 4 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, or 4 or more times a week.
4 or more times a week.
4 or more, okay. How many drinks containing alcohol do you have on a typical day when you're drinking? So anywhere between 1 and 10 or more.
I would say 5.
5, okay. How often do you have 6 or more drinks on one occasion? Would you say never, less than monthly, weekly, or daily? Weekly. How often during the last year have you found you weren't able to stop drinking once you started?
All the time.
Okay. And how often during the last year have you failed to do what was normally expected of you because of your drinking?
Weekly.
Weekly, okay. How often during the last year have you needed a drink first thing in the morning to get yourself out of bed?
I don't normally drink to get myself out of the bed.
Okay.
So.
That's great. How often during the last year have you felt guilty or remorse for your drinking?
Weekly.
Weekly, okay. And how often during the last year have you been unable to remember what happened to you because of drinking from the night before?
I normally remember everything that happened, so.
Okay. That's really good. Have you or someone else been injured as a result of your drinking? Okay. Last question here is, has a relative or friend or doctor or health worker ever been concerned about your drinking and suggested you cut down? I think we kind of know the answer to this one where you've been referred to see me.
Yeah.
So if you're all right with it, I'm just going to say yes. Okay, perfect. Alright. Next, I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about your family, kind of where you're from, how many people lived with you, and their involvement in your life.
Currently I'm living in a townhouse with my 2 boys. My mom passed away in her 50s due to drinking. And my father suffers from depression. He's in and out of hospital. And I have a sister who I'm fairly close with. So.
Okay. That's really good. Now, what about your relationships with the fathers of the boys? So first we'll start with Jeff, who's Carson's father.
He's not involved at
Not
all.
all in the picture.
So when Z found out I was pregnant, he was out of the picture. So that
That must have been really hard on you
was
doing
a
it
big
alone.
strain on me, yeah, for sure.
I can imagine. And what about Rick, Colton's father?
We don't live together, but we kind of see each other sometimes.
Do you find he's supportive?
Sometimes is, sometimes isn't.
Okay.
Like sends money, but it's never consistent. So like I can never depend on him really. Like he does help out, but I can never really count on a certain amount of money or like a certain support system. So it's stressful.
Okay. So what you're saying is you kind of wish he helped you a little more?
Yeah, I just wish that I could know that it's just like, you know what I mean? Like there's always consistency with him.
Yeah.
But there isn't. So it's stressful.
Okay. So when we went through that first checklist there, you mentioned you've engaged a bit in recreational drug use recently, and I know from your info sheet that you have a history of it as well. So if you want, I think we should talk a little more about the other substances, not so much the alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So what attracted you to these substances initially? Jeff? Okay, so you'd say he's kind of where things started.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. I'm going to go through another questionnaire with you if that's okay, just so we can kind of pinpoint your exact drug use. Okay. So do you use drugs other than those required for medical reasons?
Yes.
And have you ever abused prescription drugs?
No.
Do you abuse more than one drug at a time?
Sometimes I
Sometimes.
do weed as well as cocaine, so yes.
Okay. Can you get through a week without using drugs other than those required for medical reasons?
I have gone a week without it, so yes.
Okay, that's really good. Do you think you're always able to stop drugs when you want to?
I stopped when I was pregnant the second time.
That's
so.
right. So I would say yes.
Mm,
And do you think you abuse drugs on a continuous basis?
not continuous, no. I do stop sometimes. So
What times do you think it is that you stop normally?
sometimes I like go through these phases when I think that I'm doing really well in life and I'm just really happy with the boys and stuff and work is good, and then I just fall really hard and I feel like I'm on rock bottom again and I just need it. So sometimes I do really well and then others it's just
Okay. So you use the drugs and alcohol more when you're having difficult times. Okay. Do you ever try to limit your drug use?
not really.
No?
It's like when times are hard, it's hard. It's you know.
Okay, I can understand that. Do you ever have blackouts or flashbacks as a result of your drug use?
Sometimes I like think about my mom a lot. Like the hard times when like she was drinking and stuff, but
Right. Okay. Do you ever feel bad about your drug use?
yeah, for the boys and stuff.
Okay. Does Rick ever complain about your involvement with drugs?
Not really. He does it too, so
He's using as well. Okay. Do your friends or relatives know or suspect that you abuse drugs?
my sister
Your
complains
sister.
about it.
So Patsy's kind of aware of what's going on. Has it ever created problems between you and your partner?
To an extent, I guess. Well, not only just for him complaining about me, like I get mad about him not sending me enough money because I think that he's not sending it because
That makes sense.
so.
You want to feel more supported in your
Yeah.
relationship. Has any family member ever sought help for problems related to your drug use?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so basically, has anyone in your family ever tried to give you assistance to help with your problems with drugs?
Not really, no.
No? Okay, so there isn't much support from the family in that respect. Have you ever lost any friends because of your drug use?
Not that I can think of. No.
Okay. Have you ever neglected your family and the boys or missed work because of your use of drugs?
Yes.
Have you ever been in trouble at work because of your drug use?
Yes.
Have you ever lost a job because of your drug use?
Yes.
I'm really sorry that happened to you. Have you ever gotten into fights when under the influence of drugs?
Mm.
You're doing really great. We're over halfway there. I know this is a long one. Have you ever been arrested or because of unusual behavior while under the influence of drugs?
No.
Have you ever been arrested for driving while under the influence of drugs?
No.
Have you engaged in illegal activities to obtain drugs?
No.
Have you ever been arrested for possession of illegal drugs?
No.
Have you ever experienced sorry. Have you ever experienced withdrawal symptoms as a result of heavy drug intake?
Yes.
Have you had any medical problems as a result of your drug use? This could be things like memory loss, concussions, bleeding, hepatitis.
No.
Have you ever gone to anyone prior to seeing me for help with drugs?
No.
Have you ever been in the hospital for medical problems related to your drug use?
No.
Have you ever been involved in a treatment program specifically related to drug use? And have you ever been treated as an outpatient for problems related to drug use?
No.
Awesome. Okay, thanks for going through that with me. Okay. So, can you tell me a little more about your current living arrangement?
I live in a townhouse with my two boys.
And we said that you're living just with them, right?
Right.
How do you feel about that living arrangement? Are you happy where you're living?
It's okay.
What would you change about it?
I would like a bigger space. The boys share a room. And my older boy's getting to the age where he kind of like a bigger room.
Right.
Be by himself.
He'd want his own space. That's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me about your education? Like, how far have you gone academically?
I never finished high school.
Okay. And what kind of job are you doing right now?
I'm a waitress.
Okay. And how long have you been there?
3 years now.
Okay. Are you enjoying that job?
No, not really.
Not
I would
really.
like to further my education because there's not many jobs out there that you can get with not even having your high school, but it's kind of hard.
It's great that you can recognize that, though, that you want to make some changes, and we can help with that too, for sure. Have there ever been any issues with your substance use in terms of you being late for work, not showing up for work, or performing poorly while you're there?
Yeah, there's been times when I haven't showed up to work because of drug use.
Okay. Can you tell me if you're comfortable with it a little bit about your financial status right now? I know you said that you're having issues getting your partner to pay some child support.
Yeah.
How are you doing other than that?
I get by, but obviously I would like to be doing better.
Okay, so we'll work on that. I'd love for you to tell me kind of about your hobbies and your interests. Like, what lights you up? What do you enjoy doing?
I just like spending time with the boys. We love going to the park and I just going for walks and stuff, but obviously we don't have a lot of money, so there's
Right.
limited to what we
That's
can
great
do.
that you're going outside together, though, getting some exercise and bonding. Let's talk a little bit about your current legal situation. So, do you have any charges pending?
No.
No? Okay. What about any convictions? No? That's really great. Okay. How do you find you have time to relax? Are you able to kind of detach from your day when you need to?
Not really, no.
No. Okay. And how is your sleeping?
Not great.
Not great.
I have a lot of anxiety and stuff when I'm going to sleep, so I don't sleep that great.
Okay. You're worrying about the boys and work and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel controlling your temper?
I don't really have much of a temper. I'm more so on the sad side of things. I get mad.
I'm really sorry that you're feeling that way.
Mm.
I also want to talk a little bit about your physical health. So when was the last time you were to see a physician?
It's been a while. We don't really have a family doctor right now.
Okay.
So it's actually been a really long time since we've been to a doctor.
Okay. Do you have any other serious health problems that I should know about from your past? No? Okay. Alright. this one's kind of a touchy subject, so if you're not comfortable going through it yet, just let me know. But I would like to ask if you have any concerns about violence occurring in your family, whether that be a partner towards you or towards the boys or anything like that, any physical violence occurring. What about any emotional, sexual, physical abuse? Is there anything going on to your knowledge you'd be comfortable sharing? No? Okay. Alright. So I have a few things I want to suggest initially in regards to your treatment. And this is going to change, of course, as we start working together and our goals are going to change together. As you mentioned, you haven't seen a doctor in quite a while, so I think it's really important that before you leave today, I give you some contacts of physicians that have openings so that you can go and see someone and get a checkup for yourself and the boys. And I also received information from your CAS worker that you were supposed to receive a psychiatric evaluation about 3 years ago, and that never happened. So I think it's really important that we get that done for you as soon as possible. So I will put a referral in this afternoon. I think it would be important for you to complete some motivational enhancement therapy. It's a great way for you to boost your motivation to change. I know you've already said that you're ready and accepting to make some changes, but I think this would kind of further that for you, where you may have some obstacles in your personal life that are going to make it challenging. Then I think we can do some cognitive behavior therapy together and kind of work through your issues from the past. I think it's really important for us to continue talking about this stuff. So if you feel comfortable, I'd really like for us to meet probably on a weekly basis. That's all right? Okay. So unfortunately your time is running out. Is there any questions you wanted to ask me before we part ways today?
No, I think that.
Okay. So I want to thank you again for coming in, and I'll have our treatment plan solidified for next week.